Welcome to episode 172 of the Women of the Military podcast. This week my guest is Taylor Johnson. One thing that I've been seeing on the back end behind the scenes is that the listeners like to hear stories from women who are earlier in their journey, so I'm working to add more stories from women who are currently serving in the first 5 years of their time. And this episode with Taylor is someone who has been in the Air Force just over a year, and she and I met because she's my distant cousin, and I knew her when she was in high school, and it's been really fun to watch her journey through Facebook, and it was exciting to get a chance to talk to her and hear about her first year in the Air Force. She went to boot camp during the height of the pandemic, and she talked about what it was like to wear masks. She ended up being in quarantine for a few weeks and what that whole experience was like. We also talked about what it's been like to start her career during a pandemic and what she has planned for the future. We also touched on the blended retirement system, which is the new retirement system for the military, and in the interview, Taylor mentioned that she didn't know anything about it when she joined. So I thought it would be good to add at the end of this episode a little bit about the rules and how it's changing, and I'm working on creating a YouTube video with a little bit more information that once I'm done with it, I will post the link in the show notes, and you can subscribe to Women of the Military podcast on YouTube if you're interested. All the new podcast episodes are there, and more resources will be coming soon. So I really hope you enjoy this interview. But before we get started, let's learn more about this week's sponsor, Sabio Coding Bootcamp. Sabio Coding Bootcamp is a top-ranked coding bootcamp that is 100% dedicated to helping smart and highly motivated individuals become exceptional software engineers. Visit their website at www.sabio.la to learn how you may be able to use your GI Bill of benefits to train at Sabio. Your tuition and monthly BAH stipend may be paid during your training period. They are also 100% committed in helping you find your first job in tech. So don't forget to head over to www.sabio.la to learn more. And now let's get started with this week's interview. Welcome to the show, Taylor. I'm excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
So we're distant cousins. My mom met your mom when I was deploying to Afghanistan because I was in Indiana for training, and my parents spent like the day with you guys, or at least with your mom. When I saw on Facebook that you were joining the Air Force, I was really excited, and I told you about my podcast, and you told me you were already listening, so I wanted to have you on to talk about why you joined and a little bit about your experience. So let's start with, why did you decide to join the Air Force?
Honestly, I was tired of college, so I've always wanted to do it. I figured it's now my time, might as well just go for it. And honestly, it has a really good lifestyle and really good living because everything is pretty much taken care of medically wise. Like, you can also go into schooling and everything, and they have a lot of really good benefits.
The military does have a lot of good benefits. So were you going to college, or were you still in high school and didn't want to go to college?
No, I went to college for 4 years, got my bachelor's in recreation and sports management. So after that, basically any job that you wanted in that career field, you had to have a lot of experience to get anywhere that you wanted to go into. And at that time, I didn't have that experience. So I was looking at my options on possibly going back to school for my master's, but didn't really want to at the time. And I had always wanted to join the Air Force. Whenever they came to high school and everything, I really considered it, but I figured might as well just go to college. That seemed like what everyone in our town was doing and what the norm was at the time. So I went to college for 4 years, got that done, and this is where I am.
Yeah, and you've been in the Air Force just over a year. So did you start the process after the pandemic had started, or when did you start the process?
I started my process, I think like winterish of my senior year of college, because I had to lose so much weight beforehand, plus finding a recruiter, like consistent recruiter at the time. I think I had like 3 recruiters throughout joining, and One, like, barely helped me through, plus when I moved back to Avon, I had to find one there just to make sure that I was like, was there anything else I could really do to, like, speed this process up? I think the next winter, it was a year in my process of trying to join, and then I think the next winter, I had ended up actually leaving for BMT. It was a process on losing that weight. It was close to 20 pounds, so
Yeah, that's an interesting topic because losing weight before joining the military isn't uncommon for women. I guess men too, but it's more common, I think, for women. So, what were the strategies that you used to lose the? I mean, 20 pounds is a lot of weight to lose.
yes, it felt like a lot. Honestly, it was eating right, exercising. For me, it was hard to exercise without burning or exercise without building muscle because my legs are already still, like, pure muscle from soccer growing up like, playing high school soccer and travel soccer and everything. Like, I have never not had muscle in my legs, so I was really bottom heavy, and putting on muscle was easy for me, but not putting on muscle was hard. So, I did a lot of sprints, and then I would slow down my heartbeat, like, walk a little bit, and then sprint again. The last recruiter that I had, he had told me that little trick, like, build up your heart rate and then slow it back down because it burns a lot of calories just to, like, speed it up and then slow it back down, and then just do that maybe 3 or 4 times a week, plus the gym that I was going to had a sauna, so burning a lot of water weight was probably not that healthy, but I maybe only did it, like, 30 minutes max, like, 3 times a week or 4 times a week, just depends on whenever I was able to go and work out after work, so
Yeah, I think that is like one of the hardest things about like losing weight to join the military is trying to get fit and ready to go to basic training, but you're trying to lose weight and you don't want to gain the muscle. And I've heard like people say like muscle weighs more than fat. It really matters for women, especially I've noticed like the shorter you are, I feel like it's harder to meet the weight requirement because I've looked at them and I'm like, I'm pretty tall. So I have a lot more wiggle room than like people who are shorter. I feel like there's just not, I know I'm an inch taller or something, but it's like it's a lot of extra weight. I think it's like 8 pounds for being 5'9" instead of 5'8", and that's a lot of weight.
yeah. I'm 5'1", so they rounded up at MEPS to 5'1", and I still couldn't be over, like, 140 pounds, if I remember right. It was crazy.
But
Like, the shorter you are, the less it will help you.
yeah. No, it's true. It's true. I'm 5'9". I'm 5'8.5" when they round up, but I can be 180 pounds in the Air Force. It's less in the Army, but that's 40 pounds and like 8 inches. I guess, yeah, 8 inches. And like, that's a lot of extra leeway, I feel like. And I've looked at all the branches, and the shorter you are, I just feel like the harder it is, especially when you're like trying to get healthy by like, because you do push-ups in the air, even in the Air Force, you do push-ups, you do sit-ups, so like you gain muscle, and then you're supposed to also be losing weight, and so it's really hard. Did the Air Force get rid of like height and weight after MEPS? Someone told me that.
I'm not exactly sure. I haven't heard much about anything recently. I just know they got rid of the waist measurements for BMT, like, for all PT tests around, so that's a new thing. I'm not sure about the height and weight requirements and if that's still a thing and if they still follow the BMI scale or anything. I hope they don't.
Is that something that you've had to worry about since you're going on active duty, or was it just that way in at MEPS?
Just the weigh-in at maps.
Yeah, I think it's different in the Army, but I need to do more research. But yeah, for the Air Force, I heard it's like the way in at MEPS, and then after that, it's like, oh, it doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah. I took my PT test in September, and they said nothing about my weight, so and I still passed with a 91. I don't think it's that big of an issue when you're actually in an active duty and everything. If you as long as you pass your PT test, you're good.
Yeah, so you said that you went active or you went to basic training in December of 2020, right?
Yes.
So that's like the height of the pandemic. I remember when your mom tagged you on Facebook and like everybody had masks on. Like, what was that experience like going through training?
It honestly felt a little crazy because every time we had to wear a mask. We go anywhere, we have to wear a mask. We have to like, the only time that we weren't allowed to like, didn't have to wear a mask is sleeping because that's a common sense thing, and then eating, but whenever we, like, pulled it down to take a drink or anything like that, we had to pull it back up automatically. It just became a normal it shouldn't be a normal thing, but it felt like a normal routine to just go ahead and pull it on, and that's how you start your day. I don't know how it was before COVID and how hard it was, but, like, BMT wasn't that bad going in during COVID.
And you think it might be because of some of the restrictions that were in place? And I know that you were exposed to COVID, so that also affected it.
Yes, I think it was because of some of the restrictions, because we still had to try to stay 6 feet away from each other, like, even marching, they had the 6 feet away, 6 feet to our sides, and 6 feet behind. It was, like, I don't know, it's crazy how different I can imagine it is now.
But you guys still had to do PT and you had to pass your physical fitness test and you like did all the training. They still yelled at you and all that stuff.
Yes, they definitely did. I definitely believe that going through, like, Bulldogs, like, the squadron, like, 136, I believe, I can't remember what one it was. Yeah, being a Bulldog, they yelled at you even more, like, even harsher. We were not allowed to slack at anywhere like, at anything, honestly.
So it sounds like even though there were like a lot of restrictions and a lot of challenges that the Air Force did a really good job of like doing the training as close to normal as they could get, even though it was a pandemic.
Yes, they really did.
And then I remember we talked a couple weeks ago, but you were talking about at graduation, it was different than like what is the typical graduation. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, for our graduation, we were in OCPs. We were in our cold weather gear. I haven't seen one graduation really like that until COVID happened. And I don't know if that's more of like going in through the winter months and like you're not wearing your blues. But yeah, we didn't have any of the tapping out ceremony or anything like that. It was literally get your coin and stand there until everyone is fully graduated, and then we all just marched off, like, one by one, like, in one line. It was, like, some kind of organized craziness, but that was pretty much how graduation was. It's kind of a little sad looking at the graduations now where they're able to tap out and everything. It's like, "Oh, if I would've waited one more year, I could have had that," but no, I definitely appreciate going in when I did and having what I have now.
Yeah. So the some of the traditions and like the nice things for graduation had to be suspended during COVID. And it sounds like they're trying to, even the pandemic's still kind of going on, but they found ways to bring those traditions back for the classes that are graduating now.
I've heard that now you're up to 4 guests, they all have to be COVID vaccinated with their cards to come to graduation, and they might be upping the numbers eventually, I'm not exactly sure. I know at one point it was just 2 guests, and now it's up to 4, and then I would assume it's gonna go up, but who really knows?
In the beginning of the interview, you had your degree, but you either needed experience, which you didn't have, or you needed to go get your master's, and you didn't want to do that. And so you decided the Air Force. Why did you decide to enlist instead of become an officer?
I've heard that you get a lot more respect when you go in enlisted rather than go in straight out of high school and just become an officer. Plus, the officer recruiting centers weren't that close to my hometown, so I didn't wanna really make that commute and, like, just possibly not be a thing or anything, so I just went enlisted. I wanted to still go to Lackland like my grandma did when she enlisted and just have that whole enlisted experience.
That makes sense. And what career field did you end up picking?
At first, I was material management, and then I ended up getting reclassed out of that, and now I'm aviation resource management.
So when you graduated boot camp, did you go to training for the first one and then reclass, or how did that all work?
Yes, I went to training for material management. That was still at Lackland. So I was at Lackland for a good couple of months. I know I was there in February when it snowed and everything was shut down for a week. So I was there maybe until like March or so. And then I went to Mississippi for aviation resource management tech school.
Did the career field just not feel like the right fit and then you want to change, or how did that all happen?
It was not the right fit for me. I did not want to be working Amazon for the Air Force pretty much. And honestly, everything happens for a reason. And I love my career field now. Listen to whatever God tells you, and whatever happens, happens, and everything happens for a reason.
It's good to hear. So you were able to cross train or reclass into a new career field. You went to Mississippi and you did your training. And then when you were finished, did you go to Virginia? Because you're in Virginia now.
Yes, I did. I got Virginia was my second, I believe, on my dream list. So you do sometimes get what's on your dream list.
My husband has been pretty lucky with getting the job that he wants. It's been an adventure. But yeah, those I think they try and follow the dream sheets, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but I think they try and get you where you want to go. And so
Mhm.
I've been stalking you on Facebook. No, I've been watching your journey on Facebook, and it seems like you just love what you're doing, and you're really excited about being in the Air Force and doing the job that you're doing. So, when did you graduate from tech school?
I graduated, I think it was July 20th or something like that. I can't remember, honestly.
So, in the summer, you moved from Mississippi and up to Virginia, and so you've been there for the last 4 to 6 months. And what has it been like to be on active duty? You're done with your training, and now you're doing the job that you enjoy. What has it been like?
It's been really great because now you have that kind of freedom that you didn't have in tech school, and you still have to learn your exact job and try to get it down to a T, and it's a lot of learning and a lot of taking in what can happen in your career field. Like, honestly, anything can happen, so you have to just prepare for what could happen and then figure out how to handle it.
And so you've just passed 1 year in the Air Force, and do you have a 3 more year commitment?
Signed a 6-year
Okay,
contract,
so you still have
so
five
5
more
more
years.
years.
I guess you can't even really think like 5 years from now, your life could be so different for deciding. But are you excited to be in the Air Force for another 5 years?
Yes, I am.
And you mentioned, I don't know if it was before we started recording or right after, but you mentioned about, oh, you've talked about the benefits and about school. Did you start going back to school to get your master's with the tuition assistance, or is that just a benefit you know about?
That's just a benefit that I know about. I know after my CBTs and everything like that, I want to go back to school, possibly get my bachelor's in marketing, something in marketing aspect, because there was one of our senior master sergeants that talked to us about whenever she retires, she wants to go into airline management and the perks of that. So being able to travel, get discount ticket, and also be able to try and make someone's day on helping with their flight and everything, like, I that sounds like me whenever I retire. I wanna try to do 20 years, but we will see.
So you already are thinking about serving for 20 years and staying in. In 2019, the Air Force, or I guess the military at large, switched from the like 20-year pension program to a like I guess it's called the blended retirement system.
Mhm.
So what has it been like? Because I haven't talked to anyone about using that, but what has it been like to have you utilized the matching, or is the military, because I know it starts out automatically at a certain level. Have you messed with it, or
I have a I think it's like 10 or 15% of my paycheck coming out going towards my blended retirement. So whenever I do get out, I have that to like save for whenever, however that works. I honestly haven't looked into it much. I know that that's something that will be good for me in the future. So I figured 10 and 15, like, I'm just going to go ahead and throw it that way. I don't see it, I don't touch it. It's there whenever I need it. And it's awesome.
yeah, it's a really great benefit, because especially for women, because I was doing some research, and women leave the military at a higher rate than men. And so a lot of women were missing out. Like, I left at 6 years because I became a mom and I didn't want to stay in anymore. And so I didn't get anything except for what I had like saved on the side. But with the blended
Mhm.
retirement, you get up to 5% matching. So you're contributing over the 5%. So they're matching the 5%, which is like free money that if you
Mhm.
stay 6 years or if you stay 20 years, you get all of that at the end into your TSP. So it's a really good program. So I'm glad to
Yeah,
hear that you're taking advantage of it. That's awesome.
it's a good touching point
Yeah.
to let people know about too, because
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about that when I joined. So that's a really good perk for whenever I'm retired.
My last question, which you probably know what it is what advice would you give to someone else who is in your shoes, who's considering joining the military? What would you say?
I would say if you are considering it, go for it because honestly, it's really great. Like, you're guaranteed if you're joining out of high school, honestly, you probably don't know what you wanna do at that time, and you can join the Air Force where it has good perks, good benefits, it's a guaranteed paycheck, and you can learn yourself throughout the whole process. You can also figure out what you wanna do for a whole career after you do your 4 or 6 years, or if you wanna re-enlist after your contract is up, like, it's always an option. Yeah, I would say go for it if you really consider it.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really had a fun time chatting and getting to learn a little bit more about your experience. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Because this week's interview was a little shorter than normal, I wanted to talk about one of the things that came up during the interview, the blended retirement system. The blended retirement system replaced the old legacy 20-year pension program in 2019, and the rules are the military contributes 1% of your base pay to your TSP no matter what you do. Even if you don't put any of your money into your TSP, the military will continue to put 1% of your base pay after the first 60 days of service. You will also automatically be enrolled with a 3% base pay contribution into your TSP. You are able to change this amount at any time. Once you have served for 2 years, the military will match up to 5% of your contributions. You can contribute more than 5% into your TSP, and the military will match up to 5%. You always have control over how much you contribute to your TSP. You can also get a loan of your TSP balance or withdraw money from your TSP account. When members reach 12 years of service and commit to another 4 years of service, they will be eligible for a cash incentive of 2.5 to 13 times your monthly basic pay if you're active duty, and if you are reserves, it's 0.5 to 6 times your monthly base pay. There is also a retired pay benefit. Retired pay will be 2% times the number of years of service. If you retire at 20 years of service, you get 40% of your final base pay. If you retire at 30 years of service, you get 60% of your final base pay. You can either get your full retirement when eligible or opt to get a lump sum benefit when you retire. If you take the lump sum, you will get a reduced monthly retirement check until age 67. You can learn more about the blended retirement system on the DFAS website. And when you join the military, you are also supposed to receive blended retirement system training in your unit. And the DoD also has a BRS calculator online. I linked to both DFAS and the DoD calculator in the show notes to help you if you are looking for more information. Thanks so much for watching this week's video. If you like this video, please like it. And if you want to hear more stories of military women, please subscribe to Women of the Military. And you can check out more military stories on Women of the Military podcast. If you have any ideas or topics for future videos that you would like me to cover, please put them in the comments and I will get back to you and try and make those videos happen. Thanks so much for watching and for supporting Women of the Military.